feel like I am the most unqualified person to be making an introduction of this gentleman. I did have an opportunity to talk to him a little bit beforehand, so you can see, I mean, it's like a full page. I'm not going to, I hope you don't mind that I don't read all this, but I feel like there was probably more people, other people here that would be, maybe had done a better introduction, but might not have done, it might have been embarrassing too, like you said. So our speaker today is Brigadier General Warner A. Ross, the Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Military and the Adjutant General. General Ross has 33 years of service in the military. He received his commission from Officer Candidate School after beginning his career as an infantry rifleman at Fort Banning, Georgia in 1990. He spent his early years learning and developing his leadership while assigned to infantry, field artillery, and cavalry branches across the Tennessee Army National Guard. His military education includes one station unit training for 11B advanced course, intermediate level education course, infantry pre-command course, engineer pre-command course, and senior officer orientation course. He holds a master's in strategic studies from the Army War College, a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Mississippi, and a Master's of Education from Freed-Hardeman University. And like I said, there is a lot here to read, and I'd really rather our speaker talk about it, some of those things that are relevant. I do know he grew up over in Southwest Tennessee. That's where he's from, lives in Nolensville now. What did you tell me? You were the superintendent of schools over there, and one of the things he said is that whenever he wanted to have a project, when he was starting a new project, instead of going the normal route, a lot of times he would go present to his Rotary Club to get their buy-in to get the project started successfully. So I'm going to turn it over to our speaker. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
So hey, it's good to be here. I have some notes here, and then Austin Maxwell walked in. Everything I was going to say, I can't say now because Austin and I deployed together a couple times. He knows more about me, where all the skeletons are buried, and all the crazy things I got. So my name is Warner. That's my given payroll name. I go by Nub. Pretty simple. I've got all my fingers. It's a long story. We'll tell it some other time. But yeah, so Austin walks in. We've deployed a couple times. I thought, well, I just can't tell war stories. And then he brings Matt Harriman in here. So there's a person in this room that I happen to be maybe their middle school principal. Would that person stand up? So, Matt and my sons all grew up, and we all come from a little small town there in rural West Tennessee. Along with being a soldier, I'd had a career in public education for about 33 years as well. From teacher, coach, bus driver, principal for about 15 years, district work, and then district superintendent for the last 12 years before I retired from that and came to Nashville at the request of General Holmes, my predecessor, as Adjutant General, to take over the Army portion of the Tennessee Army National, or the Tennessee National Guard. So had the privilege over all those years in public education to see a lot of success stories, Matt being one of them, along with a lot of others, but also had the unique privilege during that time of actually deploying with students that I taught in school. So that's, no matter what people tell you about the youth of today, I'm still close enough to education to let you know there's a lot of great patriots out there. Don't you worry one bit about our youth. I mean, you can. There's some challenges out there. The biggest one is, let's get out of their way. They'll solve the problems. I promise you that. They'll solve them. So I want to talk to you just a little bit, though. First of all, we don't get the opportunity as soldiers and especially leaders of organizations to interact like this enough. I want you to know as employers, leaders in your community, that you're important to us, especially for the National Guard. We're unique. You know, we do things that other people, that other branches of the military can't do. We just don't. But yet we do all the things that everybody else does as well. So that makes us really, really unique. When I talk to my counterparts on active component, and I'll interact with them. I'll leave here, go get on a plane, and go back to DC, and I'll be in a meeting for the next 2 days with other general officers from active component. When we talk about domestic operations and support to mayors and communities after floods, it's foreign language to them. Posse Comitatus prevents them from doing that, limits them on what they do. So we walk a fine line between the civilian and domestic operations within wartime operations as well. Over the years for the Rotary Club, as it was mentioned earlier, when I, as a school superintendent, if I wanted to test out a theory or a project or an initiative that I had, the Rotary Club was just right down the road from me. They met in one of 4 restaurants we had in the county, and I would always seek an invitation there, and I'd do my testing there. And usually, it was, if the Rotary Club bought into the initiative that I wanted to start, then the Board of Education, the elected members, had no choice but to follow. And so I'm glad to be here. There's a couple of things that I've learned over the years too, as an officer in the Tennessee National Guard or a leader, the things you got to get right: promotions, funerals, and Rotary clubs or civic clubs. When you go out and talk to these folks, they're your messengers. They will take your message and broadcast that over a much wider audience. These are leaders in the communities that they come from. So today, in fact, I was in Bulgaria last fall, and reflecting back on my time with my local Rotary Club in Hardeman County. I was in both Bulgaria, and then we were over in Greece as well. And just by coincidence, 2 of the hotels that we were at, one in Bulgaria, one in Greece, evidently hosted their local Rotary clubs because they had their Rotary sign there. I took pictures and sent it back to the Wilhite, Frank, and those guys at our Rotary Club in Hardeman County, and said, "Look, I'm at a place where they got a Rotary Club in Greece, or in Bulgaria." I want to talk a little bit about 3 topics to you: who we are, what are our opportunities with the Tennessee National Guard, with specifics to Rutherford County, and then what are our challenges that I need your help on. So who we are, we're a 13, there's only a couple, 2 or 3 people that are in the Tennessee National Guard. That's myself, my Deputy Adjutant General, my Senior Enlisted Leader. Everybody else, all the other 13,000 plus soldiers and airmen are either in the Tennessee National Guard, Army National Guard, or the Air National Guard. We've got about 9,700 soldiers, which is the Army side. We've got about 3,000 plus on the air side. And they're spread across every zip code in this state. So you won't find a zip code community that you won't find a National Guardsman in. That's unique, that's specific to us. So we touch, a lot of times it's been said, we are the connection, we are the military's connection to the communities because we serve on your school boards, we are in your factories, we're in your businesses, and we don't get to do what we do as guardsmen without the support of that business community and those folks in the civic clubs there. I've already said that we do many of the things that other people, that no one else does. And we do all the things that everybody else does. When I took this job about a year ago, I certainly didn't come to Nashville to be the Adjutant General. I came to work for the Adjutant General and do work over on the Army side. It's a lot of stuff to accomplish in the last year. It's a lot of stuff that I'm trying to accomplish. I was told, hey, if you can only get 10% of what you set out to do accomplished, you'll be a success. Just make sure it's the right 10% that you're working on. That you're working on there. So I got my group together. We've all heard somebody today just going through the buffet line mention, that dreaded 5-letter word COVID. COVID was an opportunity for the Tennessee National Guard to step forward. We helped out a lot, the state government and the local people, but we also, like many organizations, learned a lot about ourselves, but we took some really tough licks during COVID, both on our membership. There was a lot of debate about the vaccination itself. I won't get into that, but we saw our recruiting efforts and the connections that we had in our communities really take a nosedive. We're in about every high school across the state. We have a unique approach, but it takes years to build up those connections with the high school guidance counselors, with the students, with the principals. Believe it or not every school welcomes the military in to their population, but the point here is we lost a lot of ground during COVID. We lost a lot of connections during COVID. This time last year, strength is everything, just like strength is important here for your club. Strength is everything to us. That's where our funding comes from both the federal and the state governments. It's based off the allocation and authorized strength. We're at about 89% strength on the Army side. I don't remember, Austin and I didn't grow up in a Tennessee National Guard that was less than 100%. We don't know what that's really like. I'm proud to report right now we're sitting at about 97% on the Army side. That's, when I took the job about a year ago, I thought this is a 4-year assignment. If you make it through the 4 years, not all do. It's kind of like superintendency. Sometimes the adjutant general's job doesn't necessarily end well. But I thought, my number one goal is going to have to be get the strength back. Because once you've got your strength, once you're at 100% authorized strength, you're at the table for new capabilities. You can get at the table at the Department of Defense for things that you want to get. And it's going to take me it's going to take our team all 4 years. 2.5% growth in a year is pretty difficult to get. And so we wake up here a year later, we've almost put it up there 8% more. A tremendous amount of growth back in just 1 year. Just this past month, Tennessee was one of 4 states recognized as being on the rebound as far as strength goes. So we're unique. On the air side, we're at about 108% strength. So that's great. We've got 3 wings that run across the state from Knoxville down to Nashville and over to Memphis. They're doing great and wonderful things. But I asked my team, I said, hey, we got to kind of really focus ourselves on a couple of things, and I want to get some strategic priorities out here. What are the things that we've got to get right in order to succeed and get this strength back right? And so number 1 was people. That's our number 1 focus priority. Number 2 is readiness. You'll see some coins here I've got. Our motto is ready now. That means when the governor calls us, when the mayor of a community reaches out, he's had a disaster, he doesn't need us 24 hours from now. He needs us right now. And we take pride in that. So number 1 is people, number 2 is readiness, and number 3 is communications. And I'm going to touch on all 3 of those, a few of the initiatives that we have going that's specifically going to affect Rutherford County in those 3 areas. I've already covered our strength, but so what are some opportunities? Well, number 1, just this coming weekend, right here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee National Guard Association of Tennessee. That's our officers association. They do a lot for us. They help us lobby all these things. We're having our 100th anniversary. It's this weekend. It's at the Murfreesboro Embassy Suites. This will be the largest one that we've ever had. Right now, there's going to be in excess of 2,000 National Guard members, and there's thousands there. More importantly, our corporate partners will be here. I don't know if anybody outside Austin's familiar with that, but somewhere around MC Suites, the traffic's going to be a little bit tough this weekend, I can promise you. We're very proud of that. We'll have multiple other states that will come. Tennessee's known for really putting on a great conference. And you don't know how great it is if you're like Austin and I, you grew up seeing this thing every year until you go to other states and see. And I've had the opportunity to do that since I've been Adjutant General, and it's no comparison to what they do. So we'll have several leaders from other states come here. They'll be in your community this weekend. The national level conference will be held in Detroit, Michigan this year. The Detroit Adjutant General and his team will be here. and they'll come here to kind of replicate, see what we're doing, make an invitation to us. But it's known across the 54 that Tennessee puts on the #1 National Guard Association conference in the whole United States. So that's going on here. Here and within a couple of weeks, here in Rutherford County, we'll break ground on our USP F&O warehouse. That'll be out at Smyrna. We're moving that from Davidson County out here. We've got, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $130 million to build that facility. That's going to bring about 30 jobs as well. It's going to transition from Davidson County out there. So we look forward to breaking ground on that next week. We'll be having a meeting, my department will, with the United States Department of Education, Tennessee Department of Education, Rutherford County Superintendent, Williamson County Superintendent's Office, and the Davidson County Superintendent's Office over a program called Starbase. Starbase is an educational program for 4th through 6th graders. It's a STEM-based curriculum. It's hands-on, mind-on curriculum, no cost to the school districts. It's in about 70 other locations across the country. We're very interested in that. I'm very, very interested in it, just in my background as an educator. One of our first sites that we're looking to have that in all 3 grand divisions of Tennessee, but the very first one that we'll have will be right here in Rutherford County. So that'll be up at Smyrna. It's always conducted at a post, at a military post, but it's of no cost and it gets great reviews. I've talked to other adjutant generals about that. We look forward. They're coming down, the Department of Education and the Department of Defense are coming down to check out our facilities to make sure that at Smyrna we can host these type of things. And it meets all the requirements that they have. So that's a good thing coming our way. The big ticket item that I was just in DC last week talking about is we have the 118th Air Wing in Nashville, Tennessee, just there at the airport. The 118th flies the MQ-9 Reaper drones. You'll never see what they do in the paper here locally, but I guarantee you, if you turn on the news at night, if I were sitting there by you, I could punch you and go, hey, 118th was on that mission right there. So they fly the drones. We also have our Army Aviation, Rotary Aviation flight facility there. That's our helicopters. So we've had a lease with Berry Field with National Airport Authority for many years. As everybody knows, it's growing. It's expanding a lot there. That lease will end for us in 20 years. And I think that's a long ways out. That's not a long ways out when you're talking in terms of building new facilities. We want to move that to Smyrna, Tennessee. We want to move that whole operation out to Rutherford County. So it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of partners to do that. It's going to take the state government to help us. It's going to take the federal government to help us. And it could be some private industries out there that want to be involved in this. This is somewhere just south of a $500 million move for us to get facilities, skiffs, secure facilities. Our pilots, and you can like Chuck and hit me if I get like too far over the secure realm of what I'm saying here. So our pilots at Berry Field are flying classified missions every day, classified combat missions. You never would know it that this guy's flying a mission out of Berry Field at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 6 o'clock that night he's at Cool Springs Mall or out at Smyrna or Murfreesboro somewhere having dinner. But that's what we do. A lot of highly classified, well-paying jobs for pilots. So we see that operation moving down to Smyrna, and we're going to need all the infrastructure built up there in order to get that done. So I'll spend all of my time over the next 3 years trying to get that framework put together and trying to get businesses and state and federal entities linked in together so everybody has a bite at the apple and can make us successful on that. That's about $150 million annual impact to this area, just those 2 operations. Our Army Aviation, Rotary Aviation, and then 118th Air Wing there. Involves about 1,200 airmen and soldiers that call that location at Berry Field their home. So now you'll have about 1,200 soldiers here in Rutherford County that'll call Smyrna their home, Smyrna, Greater Murfreesboro area. And we can't imagine that, or we'd like to imagine that there's a lot of other partnerships out there waiting when we're talking about an air wing and a rotary wing flight facility. You know, Middle Tennessee State University has a vested interest in aviation as well. And so I know, you know, we don't know what we don't know yet, but we know where we want to be and what we have to do within the next 20 years. Down in West Tennessee, we just acquired 16,000 additional acres down at one of our training sites there. That's big for us. We see that as becoming a regional training hub for our engineers. We've got the 194th Engineer Brigade down in West Tennessee, and there's just going to be a lot of opportunity there. Over in the East Tennessee, I know I've been talking a lot of Rutherford County, but I'll spread the wealth a little bit. So we've got McGee Tyson. We've got an air wing up there that's a refuelers. So they refuel fighter aircraft. They do Title 10 or active component missions every day. Over the Atlantic, we kind of run a loitering gas station out over the Atlantic. So we have our aircraft out there, fighters that are going overseas into harm's way. They'll pull in behind our plane, refuel them, send them on their way. So we're going after the new KC-46 Pegasus, which is a new refueler. Our refuelers, we got the #1 refueling wing in the National Guard, period, hands down. It's been proven, it's been documented with awards, unit awards and all that kind of stuff. We want the new aircraft that's out there. The aircraft we're flying now is about 50 years old. You wouldn't know it if you stepped on it, but it's about 50 years old. There's a certain slice the Department of Defense is giving to the National Guard, and we're in competition for that right now. Should be ours, but that's why we were in DC last week. At some point, you know, they got basing criteria out there. You've got to meet all these criteria. We're #1 on the list. There's no way anybody can refuse us, but that's not always how things happen. So we engage our congressional delegations to make sure that we got the right political pressure going to do the things like Berry Field Move, KC-46, and help us get funds for modeling. So those are a little bit of our opportunities. I'm going to talk a little bit about some challenges, and then I'll just open the floor up, you know, if there's any questions. We're on the rebound for strength. We're doing better than our competition. You don't have, what's the old saying, you know, you could take the mindset of you don't have to, you know, outrun the bear, you just got to be faster than the next guy. So we're better than a whole lot of other states, but that's not exactly where we want to be. We want to knock it out of the park. We're in a, it's tough going, you know, a lot, the connection that the military has had with both communities and families is just not there. So there's a book I would ask you if you really want to see more about today's generation and, you know, the military service. There's a book, it's called Inheritance by Carlin. And it talks about what the last 20 years has done to the connection between today's youth and the military. And what our youth have seen is, if you serve in the military, because of the 20 years of combat in multiple deployments, if you serve in the military, you're going to come out with missing limbs. You're going to come out with PTSD. You're going to come out with all these things that do happen to soldiers. It's a risky business that we do, but you know, there sits Austin Maxwell leading as a functional member of his community. I'm sitting here with 3 deployments under my belt. Yes, I saw bad things happen. I knew exactly what I was getting into when I went there, but the vast majority of the people that I'm with in the military are not characterized that way. But that's what our young people are seeing. More importantly, that's what their parents see. Plus, we're competing now against educational resources. We used to be the only game in town when it came to educational resources. You come join our team, we'd send you to, we did the free tuition stuff way before there was Tennessee Hope, Tennessee Promise, or any of that. Now we're up against that as well. So, you know, it's tough sledding out there to get, our youth are not as connected to the military as they used to be. There's a couple of generations skipped there where their parents have not served in the military. Our elected leaders have not served in the military. So anytime I get to talk to a group like this, I'll take advantage of it, hoping you'll go out and make sure that you tell your children, your grandchildren, that we have a lot of great opportunities. This has been my family. This is my family now. I wouldn't give anything for the experience that I've had in the military, and I just need your help to talk about that. One of the strengths that actually becomes a challenge for the Tennessee National Guard is the uniqueness that we have. You know, there's something that they taught me somewhere in war college, that your strength can actually become a vulnerability. So when I talk about our strength, you've heard me talk about the air wings. We have 3 of them in Tennessee: Knoxville, Nashville, and Memphis. You have the heavy cargo guys down in Memphis that fly the huge aircraft. You've got the refuelers up in Knoxville, and we got our guys here in Nashville that fly the drones. There are states out there that have no flying wings, none. And there's a lot of pressure on the Department of Defense and National Guard Bureau to level the playing field, to give those who have nothing at least something, and get a flying operational wing in every state. That does not bode well for Tennessee when we sit here with 3. So one of the things that we can do is make sure we keep our strength up, make sure that our units always compete well, they're ready to go on a moment's notice. We never give the Department of Defense one reason to blink when it comes to Tennessee and the Tennessee Air National Guard. But that's a uniqueness that can also become a vulnerability as they look to reallocate resources. On the Army side, we have some uniqueness as well. We've got the 278th Armored Cavalry Regiment that stretches literally from one end of the state to the other. There's one of only 5 heavy armored combat brigades in the entire National Guard. Down in the west part of the state, we've got the 194th Engineer Brigade. I commanded that brigade, just came back from combat with that brigade in 2020, right in the midst of COVID, but they're one of only 9 in the National Guard enterprise. So you take all those things that makes us really unique, and it really makes us a target for other states politically to go after infrastructure. So we protect that with our membership, making sure that we're strong in strength. That's why I'm trying to make sure that on the Army side we get ourselves back to 100% strength. And then, I listened to the Chief of the National Guard Bureau last week. Right now, we're all over the world, Tennessee National Guardsmen. This guy and I made a point to go visit all of our guardsmen that were deployed in December. We were in Bulgaria, we were in Romania, we were in Germany, we were in Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, and we wound up at the southwest border, all in December. And that's where our soldiers are at right now. So we've always made a point. The Department of Defense and the Pentagon issues their orders. There's all types of schedules out there, ARFIGEN schedules. Austin will understand that term, 5-year rotations, but there's also pop-up missions that happen from time to time, where the Department of Defense will need somebody to go do X. Maybe they need some refuelers over around Israel somewhere back in December. Maybe something happened over around Israel. Maybe Tennessee was the first one. We had aircraft in the air refueling Israeli jets within 48 hours of that weekend tragedy. We have people on the southwest border right now on Title 10 active duty missions. We've never done what's called reclamata mission, and that's not a Rossism. That goes back many adjutant generals ago. When we have this big arm, this thing called the volunteers, we take it seriously. When the Department of Defense asks Tennessee or throws out a mission out there for all 54 states to say, hey, who can help us on this? You can bet Tennessee is going to be one of the first ones, if not the first, with our hand in the air. And so that helps protect us to a little bit. That gives us opportunities to get into the Pentagon, into the decision makers up there when we need something like Berryfield, or when we need something like the KC-46 Pegasus refuelers. Hey, we've been there for them. We think they'll return the favor. The challenge we see shrinking federal military funding. So we know that, for example, the move from Nashville down to Smyrna we're going to have partners. We would like to come up with a solution that has no military funding attached to it, because we believe that if we don't come up with that solution, there will be other states out there who have no operational wings that will come up with a solution that involves no military funding. Department of Defense will look at it and go, I've got Arizona here that has a solution with no funding needed from the Pentagon. I've got Tennessee that's asking for 25 million of the 500 million it's going to take. We'll just, Arizona doesn't have a wing, we'll just give it to them. So we'd like to solve our problems in-house. Well, in closing, I try every week, when as much possible, whether it's coming to Tullahoma to a range, running PT with the guys. I'm getting a little bit difficult on the PT part now at age 60, but I was reminded of this. I've been told this before, and I try to do it. Try to do some things that remind me why I got into this in the first place. As young private Ross down in West Tennessee. And I try to do that. I try to get out with it. I don't try to stay on the plane to DC or downtown at the Capitol. Try to get out with our units. And it doesn't take me long to see the same thing in our young guys that I saw in this kid right here when he was a young 6th, 7th grader. It reminds me of exactly, in fact, he's a great reminder today of why I was in public education. And it was just, luck and coincidence and a good friend that brought him here today. So, and try to do all this in a professional manner. We live in a very volatile political situation today, and we have to walk the line as soldiers. We are apolitical, and just remind myself that I'm here to serve. It doesn't matter who the commander-in-chief is. I'm sworn to obey the orders, and I'll do that wholeheartedly. And whenever this job is over, I hope I can remain on people's Christmas list. And they remain on mine. So anyway, that's kind of my presentation. I hope I hit on a few things that were of at least mild interest to you. And I'll open it up if you've got any questions. Sure.
So, first off, thanks for your service, both you guys. Appreciate that. So 2 quick questions. One, a little bit fun. Your PT routine, what's that? And then secondly, you mentioned drones twice. So just spitball, like 1, 3, 5, 10 years, what's your vision of like automation, warfare, deterrence, that type of thing?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it on the I'll answer the second one first. Yep. I think we're seeing it on the battlefield over in Ukraine now. There's a lot of lessons being learned, a lot of adaptations and innovations going there. So above and beyond the MQ-9 drone Reaper that we fly here, there's another asset called the Gray Eagle that's down at the division level. We have put in for that, and we think we're going to get it, and that's also going to be at least a platoon of that housed here in Middle Tennessee, probably right out of Smyrna. Automation, we're seeing it in everything, from our tanks to our Bradleys to our aircraft. It's there. You can do more with less as far as people, but those people have to be a lot more highly trained than Private Ross was when he came. And they're out there. I'm amazed. I get to hang out with these 19, 20, 25-year-old young soldiers and airmen, and it's just amazing what they come to us with, the skill sets, the switchology, the buttonology of technology that they come with no fear whatsoever with. So I think it's the way, it's the way of the future. Having said that, as an infantry guy, it'll always take some infantry guy putting his foot on the ground somewhere in a place nobody else wants to be and says, I own this. This is mine, come and take it. So, PT regiment. I don't do it like I used to do it. I've got one titanium hip, and I'm working on another one right now. But I still do PT. I still passed the PT test in October this past year. We got a new PT test. It's no longer the 2-mile run, push-ups and setups. It's about 6 or 7 events. They work a lot more of your body. It's kind of like a CrossFit thing. So. I could go through and name them. I don't do the run anymore because of my hip. I do a bike ride instead, but you can do a boat row or you can do bike ride for aerobics. But I find that I think better and my day starts off better when I get out and do 4 or 5 miles of something aerobic in the mornings and when I got time to do that. And it's just also trying to keep up with the young guys. I go out there, I'm not the fastest, but I want to make sure that they understand that the guy at the top of the food chain is doing exactly what the guy at the lower end of the food chain is doing as well. So, my family's got a history of heart disease. I've made it farther, as far as a male, I've made it farther than my father or my grandfather on either side without having a heart attack, and I have to credit that to Uncle Sam. He made me do the PT test where I liked them or not. Yeah. So. Other questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Sereno.
Yes, thank you, sir. I don't have any question, but just to let you know, I'm glad to hear that you mentioned about young people need to know and learn. Hearing the speaker sharing some information just like you do now, and so really appreciate it. Very soon, in the last week, I had the young Sereno told me that he's going to join your company very soon. And to go to training and so on and so forth. So,
Come on up, Mr. Sereno. Come up just a second. So, Mr. Sereno here, my aide, Captain Murphy is my aide de camp. He kind of helps get my schedule done. He'll be the one here in a minute to say, we got to go. We got to catch a plane. But he was talking to Mr. Sereno, and that's a very unique name. As it turned out, his grandson was the former Adjutant General's aide de camp. So it becomes a small world. So I thank you for his service, but I do want you to give him a little heat for us. Okay, so that's my coin. It's a 2-star coin. On the front, it's got presented by the Adjutant General, Tennessee National Guard. It's got all of our major command units on the back, both Air and Army. Protect, service, honor, duty, loyalty, integrity, and courage. But then on the front, it's got a Bible verse, Isaiah 6:8. And the Lord said, whom shall I send? I said, send me. So that's my coin. I'm going to give it to you just like an Adjutant General would. But I want you to ask Pat, hey, challenge him, make sure that he shows you the coin that he's got. Okay?
okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Other questions? Hey, I could talk all day about whatever you want to talk about, Southwest Border, CENTCOM, AO, whatever.
I want to ask one because John Dietrich is dying to hear your best Ole Miss versus Tennessee football story.
Well,
Because none played at Ole Miss, John, if you didn't know that. There we go.
I did. Yeah, you think it's tough doing this job. Do this job as an Ole Miss graduate in Joint Force Headquarters, surrounded by Tennessee folks. I had the privilege of playing back in the 80s against, they had some good teams back there. They had this guy, number 92, that pretty much roamed, made everybody's life miserable. So I got to line up against him as a sophomore from Ole Miss. We went up. We didn't win that game, 13-10.
You won?
We won at their homecoming.
I was probably there.
Yeah, you probably was. I know I was there. So the best story didn't come during my playing times because that was the only time we won in 4 attempts. They regularly had their way with us. But as a school superintendent, I was back at Neyland Stadium 5 or 6 years ago with a bunch of extension agents, and we got to go to the President's Box. My wife and I were up there, and it is nice. I mean, I don't get to go to the President's Box. I was at the UT President's Box, and with extension agents, and the president comes in. It wasn't President Boyd; it was someone else. He comes in, and he's got his entourage with him. He's talking to all the extension agents. I had a big partnership with the University of Tennessee Institute of Ag as a school superintendent. We were doing some really neat projects together. So the president's coming by, and he's asking everybody, is it their first time in the box, and all these questions. So I could hear, I was like, hey, he's going to ask this. No, we've never been here. My wife's like, what are we going to say? I'm like, I don't know. We'll just make it up. We don't tell him we're Ole Miss fans. We're eating his chicken and hot dogs, man. We can't tell him we're Ole Miss folks. So he comes to my wife and I, and he says, hey, Mr. Ross, what do you do? Superintendent. Are you enjoying it here? Yes, sir. Have you ever been to Neyland Stadium? Yes, sir, I have. He said, well, it's going, have you ever been up here? I was like, oh, no, sir. Never let a guy like me up here. And he says, we've expanded a lot. He said, when were you here? I said, well, it was back in the 80s when I was here. It's like 92,000 then. and he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "So where were you at, when you were here?" And I was like, "I was right down there on that field." And he said, "Oh, you played for Tennessee?" I'm like, "No, sir, I didn't play." It just kept getting worse and worse and worse, as I went along. But that's probably my best Ole Miss Tennessee story, because the rest of them did not end well, except for that one time. Yeah.
I'm a big believer in the youth as well. My 20-year-old son just reported to Fort Riley, Kansas. He's a cavalryman. And,
Oh, congratulations.
well, I'm super nervous for him, but I mean, he's doesn't think of
He's
things
got
like
it. He's
I
got it.
remember what it was like when I was his age, and I didn't think it's the way I do now back then. But the challenge that you talked about as far as managing the culture differences in today's armed forces versus when I was in the Desert Shield, Desert Storm has got to be, to me, from the outside looking in, probably the biggest challenge. But let's boil it down a little bit more. I think forward deployed is a little bit more clear. It's the domestic things that I think if you've got that as a challenge already that's on the table, it just gets more difficult. So talk real quick about the border and about how you navigate a force in a domestic situation with all the politics that go on.
Yeah, I remember seeing from forward deployed in CENTCOM AO, Kuwait, Iraq, and all that, the Floyd murders, and in watching the Tennessee National Guard downtown Nashville at the Capitol. It wasn't just isolated to there. I mean, I looked, what caught my attention was on Army Times, a half a world away, seeing this patch on Tennessee National Guardsmen, which is my brigade. My brigade headquarters was deployed, but a lot of my brigade, one of the units here, MPs, right here in Murfreesboro, were here, and that's who got called downtown. Well, the United States was struggling with that issue. The world was struggling with it. And so, how do you manage it? Well, what I did at that time was, hey, call my soldiers together and, let them talk. Let them talk about what's frustrating them and let them talk about this situation. There were some units overseas that were with me on forward operating bases that ended up having protests. Their soldiers protesting, there on the little forward operating base. And I called my folks together and said, look, I'm here to listen and talk. This is, not good, but you will not protest. Here, we are here, you're on Title 10 orders. There's a whole different set of rules that we play by. Inside of our unit, we can talk about whatever we want, and I'm all ears. But we have to understand that we swear an allegiance and swear an oath to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States. We got to let the other folks figure it out. We're going to remain apolitical on this. But I had a lot of great feedback from my younger soldiers, that 19 to 24-year-old group that said, hey, this is what's going on here across the world. It aggravates us, but do you recognize here in this unit, if we could do this, it would be better. And I just try to take those things that those young folks ask me to do. I've been around young people all my life. I don't necessarily have a fear of listening to them. In fact, I believe that it's we as adults who cause most of the problems. If we get out of their way, they'll figure it out. It is tricky though. I mean, I'll go here pretty soon. We've got soldiers on Title 10 active duty missions that have one set of roles and responsibilities out the southwest border, and we're about to send 100 more. When you're on state active duty, those arrest powers are completely different. Like when you're on Title 10, you have no arrest powers. You're in a supporting role. When you're on state active duty, the state that you're going to can give you some authority to arrest, detain, and do those things. And so we got to be very cautious with our soldiers. I'll talk to them beforehand about being a professional, doing their jobs, to the best of their degree, but to avoid, the situation where you've got soldiers versus the Border Patrol and keeping them out. And I've talked to my counterpart in Texas, like, hey, brother, we're sending them your way. I expect you to keep my soldiers safe. I want you to keep them out of the debate, but into their job. They will do their job, but don't get them pulled into the debate. So, I don't have all the right answers for it. I'm just, kind of what would
Not
my,
easy.
what would my grandfather think? What would he say to me? Any other questions? Hey, one more back. Come on up. Can you give me one more there? Desert Storm?
Yeah.
Come on. There we go. Same thing for you. Yeah, appreciate it. Hey, I enjoyed it, everybody. Thank you so much, and invite me back anytime. I don't get these opportunities. I get a lot of them. I need to take advantage of as many of them as I can. Austin, I'll carry the MRO with me.